A millionaire patient pretends to be in a coma, but when he hears his nurse's confession, what if the millionaire patient lying in a coma could actually hear everything? He pretended to be unconscious to expose his scheming family, but the real twist came when his kind nurse whispered her own suspicions and vowed to protect him unaware he was listening. Like, subscribe, and listen now to discover how they formed a secret alliance to uncover attempted murder and expose a dangerous criminal conspiracy. Darkness, not absolute, but muffled, filtered through eyelids that refused to obey the command to open. Julian Blackwell existed in the gray space between awareness and oblivion, a prisoner inside his own skull. He could hear the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor, the hushed rustle of nurses' shoes on the polished floor, the sterile scent of antiseptic. And he could hear them. His stepmother, Catherine, her voice a venomous whisper masked by false concern. His cousin, Damien Croft, radiating impatient greed. They thought him lost, adrift in the depths of a coma, following the suspicious car crash weeks ago. They were wrong. Just needs to stay stable, Damien, Catherine murmured, her voice close, confident beside his hospital bed. The board is getting restless, but Dr. Alistair assures me, Mr. Blackwell shows no sign of neurological improvement. Another few weeks, and the motion to transfer control will be undeniable. Weeks? Damien's voice was sharp, laced with contempt. He needs to be gone, Catherine. Permanently incapacitated. Silas Vance isn't patient. The Black Widow deal hinges on us having full control of the subsidiaries by next quarter. Black Widow. The name sent a jolt of cold dread through Julian's paralysis. A notorious, shadowy criminal organization whispered about in the darker corners of finance and international crime. What deal had Catherine and Damien struck? Patience, dear cousin, Catherine soothed, though her voice held no real warmth. The sedatives are keeping him under. Dr. Alistair is ensuring no unnecessary tests are run. We just need to maintain the status quo. He's trapped in there. He can't hurt us. Trapped. Yes, but not unaware. Julian listened, his mind sharp and cold behind the facade of unconsciousness. The accident, the sudden brake failure on a rain-slicked road, hadn't been accidental at all. His own family, driven by greed and apparently entangled with organized crime, had tried to kill him. And now, they were actively working to keep him buried alive in this famed coma, waiting to seize his empire. Rage, cold and potent, warred with a terrifying helplessness. He could hear everything, understand everything, but couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't warn anyone. He was utterly at their mercy, a silent witness to their plotting, trapped in the terrifying stillness of his own body. Before the crash, Julian Blackwell, 35, commanded his world from the top floor of the gleaming Blackwell Industries Tower in downtown Boston. As the brilliant, driven CEO who had inherited the tech conglomerate from his visionary father, Julian had expanded its reach, pushing into cutting-edge AI and sustainable technologies. He was known for his sharp intellect, demanding standards, and a certain aloofness often misinterpreted as arrogance. In reality, Julian valued efficiency and results over social niceties, pouring his energy into the company his father had built, often at the expense of his personal life. He navigated the competitive tech landscape with strategic precision, guarding his company's innovations fiercely. His personal life was more guarded. His father's second marriage, late in life, to the much younger, socially ambitious Catherine, had always felt transactional to Julian. After his father's sudden death 2 years ago, Catherine and her nephew, Damien Croft, whom Julian's father had given a token position at Blackwell Industries out of family obligation, began subtly maneuvering for more influence. Julian, preoccupied with running the company, had perhaps underestimated their avarice and resentment until recently, when they started pushing aggressively for board seats and questioning his strategic decisions. He suspected they coveted the Blackwell fortune and power, but the depth of their treachery remained hidden until the suspicious accident. The crash itself was violent, sudden. Driving home late from the office on a stormy night, his brakes inexplicably failed on a sharp curve. He remembered the sickening screech of tires, the impact, then darkness. He'd woken up briefly in the ER, disoriented but conscious, overhearing doctors discussing a concussion and fractures, but expecting a recovery. It was then, feigning deeper unconsciousness as Catherine and Damien arrived, feigning excessive grief, that he heard their first hushed, incriminating exchange, confirming his immediate suspicion that they were involved. In that moment, he made a calculated, dangerous decision: retreat behind a veil of unresponsiveness. Feign a coma. It was the only way to understand their motives, gauge the extent of the threat, and potentially gather evidence without alerting them that their target was still mentally present. He was transferred to a private room in the exclusive wing of a hospital where Blackwell Industries held considerable influence Catherine was now clearly exploiting. Days blurred into a monotonous cycle of hushed voices, medical procedures he couldn't react to, and the chilling visits from his stepmother and cousin. He learned to control his breathing, his minimal reflexes, mastering the terrifying art of appearing completely insensate while his mind raced, analyzing every overheard word, every nuance, searching for a path out of the darkness. He felt utterly alone, trapped in a silent, waking nightmare, until the arrival of a new nurse offered an unexpected, dangerous flicker of hope. Her name was Nora Hayes. Nora Hayes, 29, was assigned to Julian's care 3 weeks after the crash. She was a contract nurse, brought in specifically for the intensive, round-the-clock monitoring his high-profile case supposedly required. From Julian's silent vantage point, she was immediately different. Where other nurses performed their duties with detached professionalism or, worse, whispered speculative gossip just outside his door, Nora treated him with a quiet respect that felt profoundly human. She introduced herself each shift, even though he showed no sign of hearing. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwell. It's Nora. Looks like a sunny day out there today." She would describe the view from his window, read snippets from the newspaper aloud, sometimes even hum softly while checking his monitors or adjusting his position. She didn't speak at him, but to him, assuming a level of awareness others dismissed. "Your skin looks dry today," she'd murmur, applying lotion gently. "This must be incredibly frustrating for you, being stuck like this. But you're strong. You'll get through it." Julian found himself anticipating her shifts, her calm presence a small anchor in his terrifying isolation. He started listening more intently when she was near, analyzing her interactions with others. He noticed her subtle frown when she checked his chart, the way she double-checked 4 drip rates after Catherine or Damien had visited. The inciting incident for their unspoken alliance came late one night, about a week after Nora started. She was performing her routine checks, her movements efficient and quiet. Julian could hear the soft click of her pen as she reviewed his chart. Then silence. A longer pause than usual. He heard her flip back a few pages, then forward again. A soft sigh of frustration. She moved closer to his bedside, adjusting his blanket. Her voice, when she spoke, was a barely audible whisper, meant only for him, or perhaps just for the silent room. "Something's not right here, Mr. Blackwell," she breathed, her lips close to his ear. "This sedative dosage. Dr. Alistair keeps increasing it, but your vitals don't warrant it. And MS. Blackwell canceled your scheduled MRI again today. Patient stability concerns, the order says. But you are stable. She paused again, her frustration palpable. It feels wrong, like they don't want you to wake up. She gently brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead, her touch surprisingly comforting. I don't know what's going on, who you might have angered, but I see you. I believe you're still in there, and I won't let them harm you. I'll watch over you. I promise. Her whispered confession, her vow of protection born from professional ethics and pure human empathy, resonated deep within Julian's enforced stillness. It was the first crack of light in his suffocating darkness. She saw him. She suspected foul play. She was willing to stand against his family. In that moment, Julian made another calculated gamble. He had to trust her. He couldn't speak, couldn't write, but maybe, just maybe, he could signal her. His initial goal expanded. Survive, gather proof, and connect with Nora, his only potential ally. His reaction was a surge of desperate hope, tempered by the immense risk involved for both of them if his signal was misinterpreted or discovered. Establishing communication was fraught with risk. Julian waited, conserving his energy, watching for the perfect moment when Nora was close, attending to him directly, and they were absolutely alone. A few nights after her whispered confession, while she was adjusting the cuff of his blood pressure monitor, he focused all his will, concentrating on the smallest of movements. He managed a faint, almost imperceptible squeeze of her fingers just before she pulled her hand away. Nora froze. Her eyes darted towards the monitors, checking for any anomaly, then back to Julian's still face, then to her own hand. Had she imagined it? She finished taking his pressure, her movements slightly less steady than usual. As she recorded the numbers, she murmured, seemingly to herself but loud enough for him to hear. If you understood that, mister. Blackwell, maybe try again when I check your 4-line. Minutes later, as she carefully checked the drip rate, her fingers brushed his again. This time, Julian summoned every ounce of strength, delivering a slightly firmer, deliberate pressure against her skin. Nora inhaled sharply, her eyes widening almost imperceptibly. She didn't say anything, didn't react outwardly, but Julian felt a subtle shift in her energy, a confirmation that the message had been received. Their secret communication began, painstakingly slow, built on near-invisible signals. A single-eye blink for, yes, during moments when her face was close, checking his pupils. 2 slow blinks for no. A slight finger twitch against her hand when she held his wrist for a pulse check. It was exhausting for Julian, requiring immense concentration and control, and terrifyingly easy to miss or misinterpret. For Nora, it required constant vigilance, interpreting these minimal signals while maintaining a facade of normal care, always aware of the security cameras in the room, which she suspected Catherine monitored, and the unpredictable visits from family or other staff. Nora became Julian's lifeline to the outside world and his active agent within the hospital walls. Using their coded signals, Julian conveyed his suspicions about Catherine and Damien orchestrating the crash and deliberately keeping him sedated. He urged her to be cautious, to gather proof. Nora rose to the challenge, her quiet competence masking a steely determination. She meticulously documented every medication change, every canceled test, every interaction Catherine or Damien had with Dr. Alistair, the seemingly complicit physician, or specific pharmacists. She noticed Damien frequently taking hush phone calls just outside Julian's room after visits. She observed Catherine reviewing corporate documents with lawyers in the family waiting lounge, acting as if Julian's incapacitation was permanent. Nora knew she needed help, someone trustworthy outside the hospital's potentially compromised sphere of influence. She reached out to her closest friend, Maya Chun, a tenacious investigative journalist known for her work exposing corporate fraud and organized crime. Nora confided in Maya, initially sharing only vague concerns about a high-profile patient, suspicious medical orders, and potentially predatory family members. Maya, her reporter's instincts piqued, agreed to start digging discreetly into Catherine Blackwell and Damien Croft's backgrounds, their financial dealings, and any known associations, without initially knowing the patient's identity or the full extent of Nora's suspicions about the coma. The complications were immense. Julian's physical state, though improving slightly as Nora sometimes dared to dilute his sedatives when she felt unobserved, remained precarious. A wrong move, a misinterpreted signal, a careless word overheard, could expose them both, potentially leading to Nora's dismissal and Julian being left entirely at the mercy of his captors. Tension mounted with every hushed conversation, every near miss, every piece of circumstantial evidence Nora gathered, knowing they lacked the definitive proof needed to act decisively. The need for concrete evidence became desperate. Julian, through faint signals, conveyed his growing frustration and fear that Catherine and Damien would succeed in transferring corporate control before he could expose them. Nora knew she had to take a bigger risk. She acquired a miniature recording device, small enough to be concealed within her uniform pocket or perhaps disguised as a medical tool left accidentally on his bedside table during shifts when she knew Catherine or Damien were scheduled to visit. It was a gamble. Discovery would mean immediate termination and likely worse, given the stakes. For several days, the recordings yielded nothing but innocuous chatter or frustratingly vague business talk. Then, one evening, Damien arrived alone, agitated, pacing the room while speaking on his phone in hushed, urgent tones. Nora, monitoring from a nurse's station via a live feed from the recorder, a feature of the sophisticated device, held her breath. Damien seemed to be arguing with someone, his voice tight with frustration. That doesn't matter what the market thinks. Silas Vance needs the transfer finalized now. The Black Widow agreement depends on it. No, she doesn't suspect a thing, thinks I'm just helping manage the estate. Yes, the accident took care of Julian's immediate interference, and the good doctor is keeping him quiet. What do you mean? Vance is getting impatient. We deliver control of Blackwell Industries' shell accounts for the washing machine. He delivers our payout and Catherine's ascension. It's that simple. Just tell Vance it's under control. Nora felt her blood run cold. Silas Vance. Black Widow. Washing machine, money laundering. The accident took care of Julian. It was all there. Damien had just confirmed the conspiracy, the link to organized crime, the deliberate nature of the crash, and the motive beyond simple inheritance using Blackwell Industries for large-scale money laundering. This recording was the turning point. It transformed their suspicions into verifiable fact. They now had proof of attempted murder, conspiracy, and intent to commit massive financial crimes, directly linking Damien, and by implication, Catherine, to Silas Vance and the notorious Black Widow organization. Nora immediately secured the recording, making multiple encrypted backups. She knew she couldn't keep this to herself. She arranged an urgent, discreet meeting with Maya Chun, finally revealing the patient's identity, Julian Blackwell, and playing the explosive recording. Maya was stunned, instantly recognizing the magnitude of the story and the extreme danger involved. The goal shifted instantly and dramatically. This was no longer just about exposing greedy relatives trying to steal a company. It was about taking down a dangerous alliance between corrupt insiders and a major criminal organization, with Julian Blackwell as the key witness currently trapped behind enemy lines. They had crossed the point of no return. They had the proof, but now they had to figure out how to use it without getting Julian or themselves killed. Their fight had just become infinitely more dangerous. The revelation galvanized their small, secret team. Maya Chun, working with renewed urgency, focused her investigation on Silas Vance and Black Widow, using the name dropped in Damien's recording as her primary lead. She delved into financial records, offshore accounts, and known fronts associated with the organization, searching for tangible links back to Damien Croft and Catherine Blackwell. Her skills in tracing dirty money proved invaluable, slowly uncovering a complex web of shell corporations and transactions. Meanwhile, Nora faced the perilous task of continuing her care for Julian while subtly working against his captors. Armed with the knowledge from the recording, she realized the sedatives weren't just to keep him quiet, but likely to prevent any chance of recovery that might derail the Black Widow deal. Under the guise of routine care, and timing it carefully to avoid detection during Catherine or Damien's visits or DR. Alistair's rounds, she began a more systematic effort to counteract the sedation. She meticulously administered slightly lower doses when possible, flushed 4 lines more frequently, and sometimes substituted saline solution for the sedative drip for short periods, always carefully monitoring Julian's vitals for any adverse effects or signs that might alert suspicion. Julian, sensing the shift and benefiting from the reduced sedation, began to regain minuscule amounts of strength and control. His communication with Nora became slightly clearer, a more defined finger movement, the ability to hold eye contact for a second longer, perhaps even a faint facial twitch in response to a question. It was slow, agonizing progress, conducted in secret, but it was progress nonetheless. He felt his mind clearing, his resolve hardening. He signaled to Nora that he needed to contact his lawyer, David Lee, a man known for his fierce loyalty and discretion, who had been Julian's trusted counsel since before his father's death. Getting a message out was incredibly risky. Nora couldn't simply call from the hospital phone. Eventually, using Maya Chun as a secure intermediary, Nora managed to relay a coded message to David Lee, summoning him for a confidential consultation regarding the Blackwell estate contingency planning. A pretext vague enough to avoid raising Catherine's suspicions, but urgent enough to bring Lee immediately. The meeting was tense. Lee, initially unaware of the full situation, was briefed by Nora, with Julian confirming key points via subtle signals Nora interpreted. He was shocked by the extent of the betrayal and the danger Julian was in. He immediately began working on the legal angle, challenging Catherine's medical authority based on procedural irregularities Nora had documented, exploring ways to force independent neurological assessments, and discreetly investigating DR. Alistair's potential complicity. He also started searching for leverage against Damien, focusing on the pharmacist Damien seemed to rely on for the unauthorized sedatives. The regrouping phase solidified their strategy. Maya would pursue the financial/criminal links. David Lee would handle the legal battle and pressure points, and Nora would focus on Julian's physical recovery and continued internal intelligence gathering, all while maintaining their cover. Their new, comprehensive goal was to expose the entire conspiracy, the attempted murder, the plot to seize the company, the money laundering scheme with Black Widow, and the complicity of DR. Alistair and ensure Catherine, Damien, and Silas Vance faced justice, while safely extricating Julian. The complexity and danger had increased exponentially, demanding absolute trust and meticulous coordination among their small band of allies. The pressure mounted from all sides. Maya Chin's investigation yielded a crucial breakthrough. She uncovered encrypted emails between Catherine Blackwell's personal account and known aliases used by Silas Vance. The emails detailed the plan, the staged accident, the medically induced coma, the timeline for transferring control of specific Blackwell subsidiaries ideal for laundering illicit funds from Black Widow's smuggling operations. It was the direct link they needed. David Lee, meanwhile, located the pharmacist Damien had been using. Initially terrified, the pharmacist, facing David's evidence of prescription irregularities, and offered a potential deal with the DA's office in exchange for testimony, finally cracked. He provided a sworn affidavit detailing how Damien Croft had threatened him, forcing him to dispense excessive sedatives off-record for Julian Blackwell. Inside the hospital room, Julian's recovery continued in secret. He could now move his fingers more deliberately, follow conversations with his eyes, even manage faint nods or head shakes in response to Nora's carefully phrased questions. They developed a more complex code, allowing him to convey more detailed thoughts. He urged them to prepare for a public reveal, knowing a quiet coup wouldn't be enough to truly dismantle the conspiracy and expose Black Widow's involvement. Catherine and Damien, however, were not idle. Sensing delays in finalizing the corporate transfer and perhaps becoming paranoid, they grew more suspicious. Catherine ordered stricter visitor logs, questioned Nora's charting more closely, and pushed Dr. Alastair to declare Julian's state permanent and irreversible, likely as a prelude to moving him to a long-term and less accessible care facility or seeking legal authority to make life-ending decisions disguised as medical necessity. This escalation created their dark night. Time was running out. Catherine called an emergency meeting of the Blackwell Industries board, scheduling it just 2 days away, clearly intending to use Dr. Alastair's falsified prognosis to secure permanent control via a vote. They knew this meeting was their last chance. Julian was stronger, but far from fully recovered. Could he pull off a convincing awakening? Was there evidence enough to sway the board and trigger immediate arrests before Catherine, Damien, or Vance could retaliate or disappear? The final preparations were frantic, conducted under extreme duress. David Lee prepared legal injunctions and coordinated with Agent Sarah Jenkins, who Nora had kept briefed via Maya and the DA's office, ensuring law enforcement would be ready to act the moment the reveal was made. Maya Chun finalized her evidence package, preparing to release it to major news outlets simultaneously with the board meeting confrontation. Nora carefully managed Julian's medication, ensuring he would be as alert as possible while maintaining the illusion of his coma right up to the last minute. Julian conserved his strength, focusing his mind, preparing for the performance of his life, not just acting awake, but embodying the authority and control he needed to reclaim his company and his future. The stage was set for a high-stakes showdown at the heart of Blackwell Industries. The atmosphere in the Blackwell Industries boardroom was thick with tension. Catherine Blackwell, flanked by a smug Damien Croft and a stone-faced Dr. Alastair, addressed the assembled board members. "As you know," Catherine said, her voice laced with feigned sorrow, "my stepson Julian's condition remains unchanged. Dr. Alastair's latest prognosis confirms there is no hope for recovery. Therefore, with reluctance, Damien and I must ask this board to formally approve the transfer of executive authority as outlined in the contingency protocols to ensure the continued stability of this company." Dr. Alastair presented fabricated neurological reports supporting Catherine's claim. Damien began outlining their proposed restructuring thinly veiled plans to give Silas Vance's Black Widow organization access to key subsidiaries. The board members looked somber, preparing for the inevitable grim vote. Just as the chairman called for the motion, the double doors to the boardroom swung open dramatically. All heads turned. Standing in the doorway, pale and thinner, but undeniably upright, leaning lightly on the arm of his nurse, Nora Hayes, was Julian Blackwell. His eyes, sharp and burning with cold fury, swept across the stunned faces, lingering on Catherine and Damien. "Forgive my interruption," Julian said, his voice slightly weak but clear and steady, amplified by the room's acoustics. "But I believe you're discussing my company. In reports of my irreversible condition," he took a deliberate step into the room, Nora, steady beside him, "have been greatly exaggerated." Chaos erupted. Catherine gasped, stumbling back. Damien stared, his face ashen. Board members leaped to their feet, shouting questions. Julian held up a hand, commanding silence. "For the past several months," he declared, his voice gaining strength, "I have not been in a coma. I was deliberately kept incapacitated by my stepmother and cousin, here, through excessive sedation ordered by a complicit Dr. Alastair." He nodded towards the back of the room. "Agent Sarah Jenkins, FBI." Agent Jenkins and several other agents stepped forward, along with Julian's lawyer, David Lee, and journalist Maya Chin. While incapacitated, Julian continued, his gaze locking on to Catherine and Damien. "I became aware of their plot not just to steal my company, but to hand it over to the Black Widow crime syndicate, led by Silas Vance, for money laundering." Maya Chin quickly distributed files to the board members containing copies of the incriminating emails. David Lee presented the pharmacist's sworn affidavit, and Nora Hayes, stepping forward, held up a small digital recorder. "I also have this," she said, playing the recording of Damien's phone call explicitly mentioning Silas Vance, Black Widow, and the staged accident. Catherine shrieked, "Lies! It's all lies. He's delirious." But it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming, Julian's presence undeniable. As FBI agents moved towards Catherine, Damien, and a trembling Dr. Alastair, the boardroom dissolved into shocked disbelief and outrage. The conspiracy was shattered in one stunning public reveal. The arrests of Catherine Blackwell, Damien Croft, and Dr. Alastair sent shockwaves through Boston's corporate and medical communities. Faced with the combined evidence, Julian's testimony, Nora's recordings, Maya's uncovered emails and financial trails, the pharmacist's affidavit, their defenses crumbled. Catherine and Damien received lengthy prison sentences for conspiracy, attempted murder, and financial crimes. Dr. Alastair lost his medical license and served time for his complicity. Silas Vance, implicated by the investigation and facing federal indictment, disappeared, becoming an international fugitive, though his Black Widow network suffered a significant blow with the loss of the Blackwell Industries laundering channel. Julian Blackwell, though still needing time for full physical recovery, resumed leadership of his company with renewed purpose. He initiated sweeping reforms focused on corporate ethics, transparency, and employee well-being, purging any lingering elements associated with Catherine and Damien's influence. He also redirected significant company resources towards developing technologies for social good and supporting anti-corruption initiatives. His relationship with Nora Hayes blossomed beyond the confines of nurse and patient. Their bond, forged in secrecy and shared danger, deepened in a love based on mutual trust, admiration, and courage. They navigated the complexities of their different worlds, finding strength in their shared experience and quiet commitment to each other. Julian, shedding his former aloofness, found joy in simple things: walks with Nora, playing with Emma, who adored Nora, escaping the city for quiet weekends. Inspired by Nora's compassion and bravery, Julian established the Nora's Life Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to funding patient advocacy programs, supporting healthcare whistleblowers, and providing resources for victims of medical malpractice or institutional abuse. Maya Chan served on its advisory board, continuing her investigative work with renewed vigor. David Lee remained Julian's steadfast legal counsel and friend. One crisp autumn afternoon, standing with Nora on a hillside overlooking a tranquil lake far from the city, Julian took her hand. "You saved my life in more ways than one, Nora," he said quietly. "You didn't just help me wake up from a fake coma. You helped me wake up to what truly matters." Nora smiled, leaning against him. "We saved each other, Julian." In the quiet peace, surrounded by the beauty of a natural world, they embraced their hard-won second chance, proving that even in the darkest circumstances, courage, trust, and love could ultimately prevail.